Well, it's that time again. Go ahead, gather around, grab a drink, sit down, warm yourself up. We've got another video for you. So, if you recall in KC Tool Haul 25, which we released last Saturday, bothers me not being centered, I think we did good. Just kind of tossing those out there. Was not planned, just decided to do it. But KC Tool Haul 25, if you made it till the very end, if you stayed past our Stavilla Flex Head Ratchet, you saw me tease something, and that was a new set of old screwdrivers, if that makes any sense to you. And as luck would have it, for anyone not me who's not purchased this already, these were announced on sale. It's a big deal, limited time only. I believe the sale goes through the 24th of February. If my math is correct, Saturday was the 15th. That means this video should release the 22nd, and that means you can come in and buy it Saturday or Sunday, possibly even Monday, and still get in on the deal. But essentially what we are referencing is right here. Again, shame on you if you clicked away before the end of the video, because you would have seen this and already known about them. And if you did, hopefully you kind of waited till Monday to purchase, and then you would have gotten a really good deal. But this is actually brand new from Wiha. It is their part number 107-149. I will have that link down below, straight to KC Tool. This is limited. I have no idea in what numbers. I have no idea how long this will be around. I don't know if they're all going to be gone by the end of March. I don't know if they'll be here till 2022. I have no idea. I just know that if you're interested in these and you want to bring them in, there's probably not a better time than now. This would typically retail for about 50 bucks, $49.96. It is a 6-piece set, so that's roughly $8 a screwdriver. Not a terrible deal. However, if you act now, you can get in on the sale where this entire set of 6 screwdrivers is $32. If you're doing the math at home, that's a way better deal than paying the 49 or 50 bucks for it. You're basically going from $8 to $6 a screwdriver, if you will. My personal advice, if you do that, you're buying it from KC Tool, go ahead, find $18 worth of something else that you want. And the reason I tell you that is you will get free shipping. If you hit a $100 mark, you're going to get the German sticker pack, which you've seen multiple times here. 200 bucks, I think, is a t-shirt. But bottom line, if you bring this in for the $32, tack something else on, whether it's another Wiha screwdriver, if you want to try their pliers, if you need a new pair of Cobras, whatever it might be. If you want to gift somebody, you know, the Wiha Ultra driver, you're better off hitting that threshold, particularly when you're this close, instead of paying, say, $15 in freight. It just makes sense to me. That's the way I operate. That's why I always have free freight and more stuff to showcase. So I'm pretty excited about these. Now, veterans of the channel will recall, this is not our first set of wood-handled drivers. That's right, those will all be making an appearance later in this video, as well as a whole lot of Wiha drivers we can compare and contrast these two. So the big selling point here, aside from these being kind of like an old school throwback, this is supposedly, now this would all predate my time, so I can't verify it, but this would be vintage German packaging. Now, does vintage refer to the 1930s or the 1980s? I can't tell you. But again, this is what you would be looking at. And while the box itself and sort of the color schemes and some of the insets I could kind of see being old, the backdrop kind of looks modern. But I don't know if that's me thinking of it as carbon fiber type of a vibe, because it also, when you break it down, sort of looks like pegboard, which I could have seen packaging in maybe the 60s, 70s, or 80s doing. Again, I'm not an expert in that. I don't claim to be. I just know that's one of their selling points. Now, the bigger selling point is that this is a Wiha driver. This is made in Germany, and it's a wood handle driver, which you've not been able to get from Wiha for quite some time. The 4-piece set, let's go ahead and kind of break this down. They're going to have a special tip. We'll investigate that much closer here in the future. Right there, that, if you play a lot of video games, you might be like, oh, you know, leather, cowhide, right? And well, that's, I'm assuming, what they mean by that design. So if it's something, you know, some scientific term, or, you know, for striking cap or taying through, I don't know about it, but I am equating that to what I believe would be the leathered end caps. Now, why do you want a leather end cap on your wood handle driver? Is it for looks? Is it for aesthetics? Well, kind of. It does look better, but number two, it's just going to keep the wood from splintering. Again, this is the tang all the way through the shaft to the very back end of the handle, meaning when you come in and you bear down on this with a mallet or a hammer or whatever you're working with, you reduce the risk of splintering the wood when you have that leather cap there. Not as big of an issue for other handle materials, but with wood, you don't want to splinter your handle. You want to have that leather cap. Right there, that is advertising the Hex Bolster. You can see we've got 4 slotted and 2 Phillips. On the sidebar here, we've got Wiha. Now, this might actually be what they're referencing, and that's going to have a funky little glare for you. This actually makes more sense now, truth be told. I haven't looked at the side of the box yet. But in terms of vintage German packaging, now that very well could be a staged photo, you know, from like, you know, a month ago, or it may not be. It might be something they had in the archives and they've doctored up. But you can see there the guy's working. He's putting hardware on some looks to be, you know, antique furniture. And then right there you can actually see, if you pay close attention, the other piece that's colored in is the wrench. And that would, of course, be highlighting the Hex Bolster. Now, coming around to the other side, we just got a really nice side shot of the driver, which is pretty sweet, I must say. Gives you a good idea of what you're getting into. The back side, again, you've got made in Germany up there, Wiha. Now, this would not be vintage packaging. Maybe that was what they were referencing, was the side. Maybe the front also is a throwback. Again, I can't say for sure. But you can see a lot of their stuff, and this is going to be real modern. They wouldn't have had digital torque handles back in the day. Probably wouldn't have had plastic calipers or anything. Probably wouldn't have had the 2-handle mallets or this flip out. You get the idea. All right, all the fancy little bit sets. But in English, the Wiha wooden handle, the all-rounder for woodworking applications. Handles made of sealed beechwood. That is important. It is sealed, if you're curious. That way it's not going to be splintering. It's going to be, you know, more resistant to moisture. Handles in protected with a leather cap. We've covered that. The blades are going to be a chrome vanadium steel, and this set advertises exact fit precision tips. So with that said, there's the top side. Kind of a cool little look there at another driver. We'll drop this down, open her up. This is what we're looking at right now. Can we pull this back? Let me know, do you, when we looked inside this box at that material that you kind of see there, do you equate that more with like a modern carbon fiber type of look? I realize it's not carbon fiber, it doesn't really look like it, but it kind of has the color scheme of carbon. Do you equate it to that, or is it more pegboard to you? It'll be interesting to see what people think. With that said, we will just pull these out one by one, I suppose. Take a look at them and get ready for some comparisons. Go to town right after that. The cool thing, another cool thing I should say about this set is the sizes, which we will cover shortly. But once I get them out, we'll see if you can kind of see where I'm going to be going with that. Again, it is a 6-piece set, not 5. You do actually get 6. It's always a crapshoot if people would prefer, you know, the 4th slotted or a 3rd Phillips. Sometimes people, you know, want squares in there. I know people like that. But let's come in. We've got our Phillips at the top. And let me just kind of size these up for you, if we can. All right. So they actually did them in ascending and descending order, which is nice for people like me. It makes my life a little bit easier. But if you pay attention to these, I've got them roughly lined up, right? You're going to see that for the most part, it's got that nice staircase. And what that tells you, or should tell you, is that we have a lot of different sizes. That would be correct. Now, coming in on the Phillips front, which is going to be up at the top, that is a #1 Phillips at the very top, 80 millimeters in length. So essentially, when we make the jump here to the #2 Phillips, that's 100 millimeters in length. That's going to be your differential there. When we jump up to our biggest slotted, which would be a 7, it's 125 millimeters on the blade length. So essentially 4-inch, 5-inch, take from it what you will. Dropping down, this is the only length, if I'm thinking correctly, that is replicated. If you think, hey, that looks to be the same length as the #2 Phillips, that is absolutely correct. Our 5.5 is going to be 100 millimeter shaft length. Coming in here to our next size down, keep in mind 180. Now we're going from 100. Our next slotted, if it looks a little longer to you, that's because it is. It's going to be a 90 millimeter. And then our smallest one, which this one will be a 4.5, 3.5 here, is going to be a 75 millimeter shaft. So it's kind of cool. Some people might not like it. Some people might prefer them to be the same size. For me, I appreciate the little things. So essentially, we're going to have a 75, an 80, a 90, 2 100s, and then the 125. So again, that's kind of why we get that nice little step up, if you will. But the drivers themselves, let's go ahead and grab our biggest slotted. This again would be the 7. It is 125 millimeters in length. You can see on the handle, if it looks glossy, again, that's because it is sealed beechwood. We spin it back around to the business side. You've got your barcode. Now, I already know we've got like 2 or 3 of you that are adamant every time you see a barcode. It just angers you, particularly on a tool. I can totally relate to that in situations like this, assuming this is like a limited, you know, whether it be production number wise or just X number of months or whatever they have in mind. Again, I have no clue. Would have been nice to not have the barcode. You know, you're not going to see that if you inherited screwdrivers from your grandfather or something, or something's been passed down through the family or at work. You're probably not going to have the barcode on something that's true vintage or nostalgic. That would be one minor complaint you could have. Again, over time, if you do use these, that will all rub off, I'm sure. But the thing that I do like, we can see here, if it will focus for us, let's come in just a little bit more. That glare is not helping, but as you can see there, you got the 162, but more importantly, we've got the 7 by 125. That tells you the size. And then it's got made in Germany. It's got the Wiha logo, which again, that's kind of why I busted that stuff out. Now, spinning her around to the back side here, that has got, if you're thinking, hey, that doesn't look like the beechwood, remember, that is the leather, the cowhide, whatever you want to call it. And again, that is there because these are striking cap drivers. With the wood handle, we want to protect that. We want to keep it from splintering. That's basically what the leather cap is going to do. Now, we do have the Hex bolster. As I spin this around, you can kind of see the seal between the wooden handle and the shaft itself. There's no washer, nothing funky there. It actually looks to be a pretty solid design in my opinion. We'll figure out the Hex bolster sizes, all that stuff here in just a little bit. The chrome job is actually pretty good. Looks better than the SK trash that they dealt me that they still haven't resolved an issue with. Not that I'm expecting anything at this point in time. But check this out. That is what they referred to by special tips. It's not just some like, you know, purchase this set for special tips gimmick. They actually did invest a little bit of extra time and money into this. If you were to come in and buy just a standard set of Wiha Sotft finish, their latest and greatest micro finish, whatever it might be, you will not have this feature. It's just going to be a standard blade. This is sort of what we have seen on some of our Wiha drivers with the anti-cam out. It seems to be done really well here though. You can easily feel that with your finger. It's pretty nice to see that in place. It is split in the middle, so you've got, you know, one set of treads going up. This side splits there, heads towards the other side of the blade. All in all, a very nice screwdriver. Now, in hand, in my opinion, it's a little undersized. However, virtually every wood-handled driver I've gotten has been like that, with the exception of one brand that we'll cover here shortly. This is something that I have right before the thumb injury. I mean, I was doing some things, I tell you, and I did do a comparison between the Wera and the Gedore handles, and basically what that resulted in was me getting splinters because I was not used to using wooden handled stuff. But the size did start to kind of aggravate me. But it is what it is. This is kind of true to form. This is what they had back in the day. Now, coming up right here, let's go ahead and grab our next in line from the slotted. This is going to be, as you can easily see, our 162 and 5.5 by 100. So once again, I'm very intrigued by the way they've capped this because it looks different than our others, which is a good thing for comparison's sake. But even as we get down to the smaller sized drivers, the tip does have a different finish to it, so it's probably been treated a little bit differently, but it does not have kind of our, you know, whatever you want to call it, anti-cam out, knurling, ribbing, all sorts of different ways to refer to that, but it does clear to the naked eye, definitely looked different again. I perceived that it was lined. It was not. But just as important, at least in my opinion, is what they've done here to the Phillips drivers. So we're going to come in once again. You can easily see right there, that's a 129. That's a Phillips 2x100. Again, we've got the leather cap on the back side. As we spin this around, it is the same seal setup, which is cool. But I'm going to try to zoom in on this for you. It's not really showing up that well for some reason. Let me bring it up here so I can see it. Yeah, I can definitely see it. Gonna try to get it to where you can. I think what we have here, you can sort of see it if you know what you're looking for, but the chrome was well done, and that makes it harder to see things because we've got that nice kind of mirror finish. Polish is just reflecting light like crazy. If I rub my thumbnail across this, I don't think I have enough material for you to hear, but what I'm trying to get at is this has that really nice machined finish. Again, I've got other Wiha drivers here we're going to take a look at. While their tips are probably going to be the same shape and style, this one you can actually see the lines in. I don't know that we'll have a better time seeing it on the number 1. I will give it a go though. It's very easy to see in person. I'll put it that way. That's as big of a look as I can get for you. If you use your imagination and you think, hey, did my machinist just turn this down on the lathe? And you know how sometimes you can see that easily to tell it's been machined? That's what you have here. It's just extremely hard to showcase. And I also realized that I left one driver that I meant to bring over there. So what we're going to do now, this is essentially what you get. Again, a number 1 and a number 2 Phillips. And then we've got our 4 slotted. It ranges from a 3.5 all the way up to a 7, 4.5, 5.5 in the middle. Again, you can see the varying differences in length there on the blades. And what I want to do though is come in, we're going to do 2 full comparisons. We're actually going to, I guess, come in first and compare with other drivers, Wiha in particular, and then we're going to move out and we'll finish up with the other wood handle drivers. So let me set some stuff up and we will be right back. Alright, so we're back, and I've got one driver in particular I want to try something with because it's what I could always get to show up the best, which means it probably isn't going to happen this time. But in my hand is a Felo Ergonix, and I think we might have hit the sweet spot right off the bat. I don't know that you can tell, but when I talk about, you know, you can tell that the tip was well machined. It's very easy to see on this one, at least in person, because it's got the black tip. But if I run my thumbnail across this, I think you'll be able to hear it. Alright, hopefully that doesn't make me out to be an idiot, but I think that will be picked up by the mic. But if you cannot see it, you can easily, with the naked eye, tell that that is a machine tip. You can see the lines where it was turned, and that is what you have with the number 1 and number 2 Phillips there. Now, what I want to do is back this out and kind of go in like a reverse order and then compare with the wood handle drivers. I would assume that this came after the soft finish, could be mistaken, but this is Wiha's micro finish, right? And we're sort of walking it back to the point we would have had these. This is kind of one I optioned out heavy duty. We got the bolster and the striking cap, but this is kind of designed for wet, oily, greasy hands. Comes in very, very handy if you've ever used like channel locks, dipped handles only, and you've had antifreeze on your hands like I have recently. You start to really hate that. And this is where this type of a handle would excel. So we'll kind of set this guy out right there. Up next, I'm going to reach up here and we're going to grab the classic. This is probably what you're familiar with in recent time. The Wiha soft finish, red and black. One of the best, most comfortable handles you will ever find. Again, all these are going to be number 2 by 100 millimeter. It also has the machined tip, which I don't think we can get to show up, so I won't even waste your time with it. But there they are. Now, going back a little bit farther, and again, I'm not quite sure on the order of these two. I would assume this would be next in line. Now this is their Pro Turn handle. It's something I brought in just to kind of experience the Pro Turn, and in part because it's T25 and I needed it to get sunk down fasteners from people when they send crates to me. But that is the Power Turn handle. You can kind of see where they're going. I actually left out one of my favorites, I realize now. But the square, sort of the square handle right here, classic old design, sort of like what you see with the SK stuff, right? That is what we have here in this T25. And as I come back in, the missing link between these two, very, very important, in my opinion. It is the 3K, one of my favorites of all time. I'll tell you that right now. Not just because of the color scheme, which is awesome. It gives it an instant advantage there. But this handle is fantastic. It's sort of the progression, I believe. Again, could be wrong, but I'm thinking we went square grip, Pro Turn, 3K, soft finish, and then of course micro finish is just kind of a spin off of that. So the I'm not going to waste your time. The camera, if we had like a magnifying feature, I think we could do some damage, but as is, it would be me sitting there telling you that you could see it if you were here, and I don't want to spend our time doing that. So there we are with kind of our flashback through the Wiha line. Now there is the dynamic handle. I actually have it too, so we just will bring it in. Think sort of like a cross between the Pro Turn and the square handle. I guess would be the best way to describe that one. But what I have here is from the 3K line. And if you see it and you think, hey, why is that one gray? Well, the ACO there, that's not like some tribute or my initials or anything like that. That's for anti-cam out. And I'm going to attempt it here with no promises it will work. But on the tips of the blade, there's actually etchings on that, and that's designed to keep you from camming out. Again, this is one of those things, I've probably gotten it to show up in the past. I'm not going to invest the time on this particular driver for good reason, because when I referenced our biggest two slotted here, and I told you that it looked eerily similar to something we brought in the past, well, here is another 3K anti-cam out, but this one, if you note, it's going to be slotted, right? When we get down here to the business end, despite this having the black tip, which does make it harder to see, this has the exact same design as what we see on our big slotteds right here. So if I hold these two side by side for you, very easy to see on our wood handle, not so much on this one, but again, trust me, it is there, that same design. So this wasn't just thrown together, is kind of what I'm getting at. This is actually thought out. They did put some effort into it, they did put some time into it, and all in all, it's a pretty cool little set. Now, what I want to do here, that we've taken our trip down memory lane with the Wiha drivers, I'm going to go and we're going to grab our wood handle drivers. We're going to focus explicitly on the number 2x100mm. I actually have them here, I just need to clear up some space. So I'm going to grab them, we're going to go over them tooth and nail, point out the highlights, the lowlights, the differences between them, see what we can draw conclusion wise as we compare it to other brands. Alright, so off here to the side we got two new additions to the table, and that is because we need to talk about the Hex Bolsters. Now, the way this is structured, we essentially have the Phillips 1 and the Phillips 2, both with Hex Bolsters, and then we have got our two largest slotteds, the 7 and the 5.5, with a Hex Bolster. The smaller slotteds are 3.5 and 4.5, have absolutely no Hex Bolster, coincides with the lack of the anti-cam out, the ribs, the machine tip, whatever you want to call it. Now, interesting thing, when we come in here and we grab our biggest slotted, or the number 2 Phillips, we're going to have a 10mm Hex Bolster. So, simple enough, right? You think, oh, well, you know, that's probably 10mm on the size down, right? Kind of looks a little smaller, but they just have a shorter shaft, so that's the deal. Not so fast. As you can see, the wrench does clearly not fit. So, when we come in, it's actually going to be an 8mm for our next size down, again being the 5.5. Similarly, as we come up here to our number 1 Phillips, easy to see that that is a smaller size. It also 8mm. So again, 8mm and 10mm will get you by for your Hex Bolsters on this. What I want to talk about now is how this compares to other wood handle drivers. I just took a look at the Felo, Gedore and the Wera, I literally have just brought in the number 2 Phillips. Have the 5 or 6 piece set from Felo, can't remember which one now. But, it had varying sizes of hex bolsters. It is worth noting, even their smallest did have the hex bolster, if that's something that's important to you. If you were going to use the wood handled as your heavy duty driver set, it very well could be. But something that I was excited about is you can tell a difference between these, and I was very, very, very happy about that. Now right here, this is from Felo. This is probably the best known and the most frequently bought. In fact, a lot of you, particularly if you missed the video, probably didn't even know that Gedore and Wera have wood handled drivers. That's how well the Felo driver does. It has a unique shape. It's an ergonomic shape compared to this. I can definitely, in Wiha's case, they were going for kind of like a nostalgic or vintage driver. They pulled it off. That's not the selling point of these two. This is just genuinely their wood handled driver. I've got to say, ergonomics have come a long way, and this would be your most ergonomic of the wood handled drivers, let's put it that way. Now, a lot of people are unlike me, particularly if you prefer Wera and their design over, say, the big bulbed handles of Wiha or Vit. You're probably going to still prefer the smaller sizes like you would have here. Now, it's going to come down to personal preference, but ultimately the size is totally different. The design is totally different with Felo. You can see right there, I think I tried to grab, yeah, this is the not used number 2. The other one I've used a lot. It's, right there, you can kind of see it. Leather cap all the way, the tang goes all the way through to the bottom end. We've got our hex bolster. Note on this one that you have the seal, you've got the hex bolster resting kind of on the plate, and then you've got like that matte finish that we've come to expect from German tools, right? When we set that down, we'll just put it on top here. You can easily tell the difference in the luster between those shafts. The Felo is finished out more like, say, Wiha's soft finish, just the matte chrome. Again, some people like that, some people don't. I happen to really like it. Now, coming in here, we're just going to grab the next one in line. This is from Wera. Now, the interesting thing here, black tip, matte shaft, hex bolster, and then where it joins, it's kind of a different design. You barely see anything above this kind of like joining feature of the shaft, the wooden handle. You can also see the pin, you know, where it was kind of a pin, I shouldn't say, but where it was punched kind of into place to keep it tight, right? That is a different way of putting this together. And then on the Gedore, it is totally different. And, you come in, you've got something that looks really similar to what Wera did, and we don't see a pin mark on it. But if you look down that shaft and you're like, do I see something kind of like brown or orange in there? You do. It's like some sort of a soft washer. So all of these seem to have different ways they're joined. Now, very possible they could all be done at the same plant. I don't know. I would imagine there's 1 or 2 places that specialize, you know, in wooden handles. I don't know if they're outsourced. I don't know if they're done in-house. Speculation, of course, was that these two drivers are essentially the same. The Felo one, you've definitely just got a different handle on it. But the thing here to note about the Gedore, it follows suit with what Wiha did. Note, we do not have the matte chrome shaft. We don't have a black tip. It's just, you know, straight chrome vanadium, and it's polished, and it goes all the way from the bolster out to the tip. So let's go ahead and kind of get this guy out of the way and cycle these back. Just grab the number 2 Phillips, essentially. This is what we are left with. This, if you want a number 2 Phillips or a wood handle driver from a German tool company, this is what you have to work with. Let's actually set these aside so we can kind of get these up in the frame. So we've got Felo, that's the first one that we brought in, right? And then we've got Gedore and Wera, both coming in roughly the same time. And then our newest addition is from Wiha. So let's kind of once again just go over the differences in these. Now, what do they all have in common? They're beechwood, they're sealed, they all are going to feature hex bolsters, they're all striking cap, they all have leather end caps. All right, just paying close attention to these, you can again easily tell that the Felo handle has an ergonomic design. The rest of these are just sort of round. It's what we would have had back in the day. The Gedore and the Wera have pretty much the exact same bevel in their handle, and then they kind of come into shape, if you will. They've both got sort of the different little ridges. It's very hard to see them, but rest assured they're there. And the Wiha, on the other hand, you can kind of see where we've got where we would turn the driver. That comes down, and then we've sort of got like a parting line, right, between the wood sections of the shaft. It's all one piece, don't get me wrong, but it's just machined or turned down differently. Kind of adds a distinct line right there that differentiates it from these two drivers. Looking at the business end down here, the Hex Bolster, we're going to have all sorts of varying sizes. The Felo and the Gedore kind of opt to go with a low profile, sort of minimalistic. It's almost just literally like a small nut, which I should have tons sitting around over here. So you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. This is probably you know, some quarter stuff, but we'll throw that down, and you can see that this is almost like 1.5 times, right, on the Wiha driver, whereas if I come and take this nut up here to our Felo, it's essentially the same size. That's kind of what I'm getting at. In my opinion, with a Hex Bolster, I do not mind the extra height. In fact, I would find that to be desirable. It's going to make it easier to drop the wrench on. More importantly, let's say that we've actually got something that sees to heck and back. Okay, we don't want a situation where I come in, let's just grab the Felo for example, and I've got this. We probably would use the box end, of course, but if I'm kind of twisting and everything, if this wrench drops down, it's off the nut, this hand's flying forward, right, or into the workpiece or whatever we have. With the design of the Wera and the Wiha, with the Hex Bolsters being taller, again, case in point, see the wrench is there, and you can almost fit another wrench, right? This is going to minimize my chances. When this wrench slides, instead of just being off and on the shaft where we lose control, we've got a situation where it could drop down. I'm still caught, I'm still on the shaft, even though we've dropped down that far. That to me is just kind of safety, and similarly it's just kind of for my convenience. It's a better, superior design in my opinion. Case in point over here, PB Swiss sort of has that taller Hex Bolster, which I prefer, and then you kind of get to a driver that just ticks me off, and you've basically got what looks like a nut on the SK. Alright, so in my opinion, the design of the Wera and the Wiha is superior in that case. Now, if you're going for aesthetics or you want it to look streamlined, maybe you prefer the recessed version. But for me, from a purely functional standpoint, thinking about, you know, where my knuckles are going to be headed if the wrench comes off, well, this is what I want to see. Case in point, this is probably the most heavy-duty driver I own, the Wiha Micro Finish. It maintains that same profile. For when I come in here, we could essentially put a second wrench on top. Again, that means if we slip down a little bit, we can still catch with that huge gap instead of just being on the shaft and breaking free. So that's personal preference in terms of the aesthetic side, but realistically from a functional side, I do believe this would be the most desirable feature. The tips, let's grab the Wera one. You do not see the machined finish on it. Again, it's matte chrome. Did grip decently from what I remember. Again, that was quite some time ago. The Gedore, okay, it's not machined either. And then the Felo, no, not near as cool of a tip as, say, their ergonics, right? I think we've made that comparison in the past. What I'm going to attempt to do, and this will probably not work, left hand, we've got the Gedore. Right hand with the glove, we've got the Wiha. So if I zoom in on these suckers, again, both of these feature, in this case, the chrome vanadium shaft, the full length. It's not matte chrome, it goes all the way to the tip. The tips are not black. I think you can kind of see what I'm meaning, right? You can sort of start to see where this was turned down, right? You can see the machine marks. And as we come in, where this is just like an old Stanley driver I have, or a Craftsman, the, you know, shaft just extends all the way through to the head, and you'll think, man, that looks a little different. It almost looks smaller. That's because, again, this is an exact fit. It's a little bit more timely, a little bit more costly to, you know, finish the tip out like that, but the end result for you is that it's going to perform better, or it should, assuming you're using the proper hardware. So there it is, side by side between these two, and I kind of know what I want to see. It's what we have in the Wiha in this case. Now right here we've got a soft finish, as you can tell by the quick color change there, but where they have the collar on the soft finish, that's sort of where they make their transition to the tip. That's basically what they've done with this chrome vanadium shaft, but it's just, instead of having that nice smooth transition and drop, they just drop straight off, because again, there's no treatment or anything done to that tip. But all in all, and this is just kind of going to be a rough assessment here, Hex Bolster grades for our wood handle drivers, I'm going to have to say Wiha and Wera. I kind of prefer the matte chrome, although with wood, aesthetically, you could argue, I mean, I'm not a big chrome guy, you should know that, but I mean, it does look pretty good. It's kind of complementary colors, if you will. But you've got black tips on the Felo and the Wera, whereas here you've just got the straight chrome vanadium all the way through. In terms of the handle design, if you want ergonomics, Felo is probably the way to go. Let's back that out. That's kind of a nice off-center shot. But when we get right down to it, let's go ahead. Got the Wera. It's a little slick. I do remember that as well. Got the Gedore. I think the Wera has a better thumb slot, in honesty. And then the Wiha thumb slot is significantly better than those two. Again, that's kind of a big deal to me, because that's where I would rest my fingers when I'm turning. And that's typically what we see with sort of our high-end drivers. Case in point, let's go back to their latest and greatest offering. If you're a fan of the Wiha soft finish, obviously we have a bit more of a bulb back here ergonomically, but right here, see where we kind of taper down and the black becomes the red? That's kind of like your turning zone. They did a really good job for this being a wood handle of transitioning right there. And in hand, it is very easy to pick it up, and you could almost say, well, you know, let me feel that blindfolded, and then let me feel this. And if you knew it was a wood handle driver and you had to identify the manufacturer based on that feature, I think you could easily tell that this was from Wiha. Now, Felo, they have a pretty good step there, just because it's bigger on the back end and kind of accomplishes it, plants your thumb in the landing, if you will. It all ultimately comes down to what you prefer. Now, the Gedore and the Wera, that stuff's been available, it's still available, it's not on sale. The Felo, fantastic, highly recommend those. The Wiha, though, if you're a fan of their drivers, if you wanted to get wood handle drivers, it's a stupid good buy right now. It's also limited. Again, what exactly that means, I can't tell you for certain, but I do know that it would be in your interest to pick it up now while it's on sale if you're wanting to pull the trigger on it. Backside here, again, take your pick with what you do with striking cap drivers. I wouldn't use these as a chisel, particularly the slotted ones, of course. The Wera chisel drivers actually hold up very well, but this is a striking cap driver. If I had these and I had a C's number 2 screw, I would absolutely not hesitate to hit this and try to, you know, send a shock down, free it up from its rusted surface, and get it to where we can actually turn it free. That is, again, the intent of the striking cap, not to be used as a chisel in the case of any of these wood handle drivers, but for an actual striking cap purpose, I would have zero issues going to town with that. That said, I believe that is all she wrote. That's probably all and more than you wanted to know. We might, since I've not actually edited the video, I could potentially throw this in here and kind of go to town, see which one we ultimately like using the most, which is a big deal. But I don't also want to spoil the results from the other portion I've already done. However, I can tell you again, all these are still available. The Wiha one is to be limited. Again, not sure what that means. It's a super good buy right now. It runs through February 24th. I'm filming this Monday after work. This video will go up Saturday. Would have done it on Wednesday, but truth be told, I kind of wanted Tool Haul 25 to get some attention and then drop this one. But I'll probably try to post a picture on Instagram or something Wednesday, kind of let you know it's coming. That way you can cash in ahead of time if you're so inclined. Once more, $32 on KC Tool. check the tool of the day if you do decide to order. If it's something you want, that will probably get you over the threshold. If you want to bring in something like this, these drivers do kind of get a little bit more expensive. If you want to try out Wiha Soft Finish or bring in whatever 3K they might still have on hand, anything you can do to get that $50 mark, I honestly believe you will be better off in the long run, just because you would probably pay freight and be at least in the $10 to $15 range, possibly more, depending on your location and the weight of whatever else you might get. But for me, that's what I always try to do. And no, I'm still not a part of the affiliate program, so I make absolutely nothing telling you that. I'm just looking out for you. This is the same advice I would give a friend if they said, hey, I love these, I want to get them. You said they're on sale, give me a link. I'd say, hey, get yourself a pair of pliers or something, and you'll be better off, again, in the long run. So, big selling points on this: limited edition, the vintage packaging, which again, I can't really attest to what exactly that is, but hey, it's what it is. They've got the special tips on your two largest slotted. That would be our 7 and 5.5. The number 1 and 2 Phillips are machined really, really nice for an exact fit. We've got Hex Bolsters on those 4 drivers, 10 and 8 millimeter respectively. And I believe that is it. So again, I will have timestamps sort of dividing this up. I always do that for your convenience. That way, if you could care less about other Wiha drivers, you just want to see it right on with the comparison between the other wood handled, you can do that. If you only want to see like the Wiha history, you know where to click off, whatever it might be. But all of this stuff we have brought in from KC Tool. You can find links to it in the appropriate videos. Only going to link this one this time because, again, that's what this is all about. It is a stupid goodbye. Again, I'm one of those guys that when I come in and check tool of the day, I actually check what's new too. And so I'd known about these for quite some time. That's why I brought them in. That's why they were in the video already. This isn't like some underhanded conspiracy where they were sent to me ahead of time, anything like that. It's just I get excited about this stuff. I keep tabs on what's new, and when I see, you know, coming soon new Wiha drivers, I think, ooh, you know, and pulled the trigger on them, and subsequently got them here, which is great for you because, again, now you know about them. If you want them, this is probably the time to get them. If for nothing else, because of the sale price, again, I'm not sure how limited they will be. I will probably, truth be told, use mine. Just kind of mix them in here and there. And ultimately we'll probably throw them in the comparison there. We'll go probably a bit more detailed, but just rough comparison, you can kind of see where these fall. I mean, it's crazy stuff like this. You know, the Wiha line looks more like the Felo where it's sealed off. It has the ring all the way around like the Gedore, which probably provides for a better fit. We could go on and on. I don't want to do that to you, but I will in a standalone video. But the main highlight here is, of course, the Wiha 6-piece wood handle drivers. It's pretty cool, and again, if you're a fan of Wiha, if you want a wood handled set, if you've been debating to get one, if you have, maybe you brought one of these in and you hated it, you have smaller hands, you prefer something more old school, if you will, this is your ticket. In terms of how they will perform long term, I don't know. Based on how my other Wiha drivers have done, I would have zero hesitation with them. But I'm kind of losing my voice. It's getting really cold, at least my feet are. I'm going to head inside. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned a little something. If you do cash in on these, let me know what you think of them when you bring them in. Always exciting to see people get something new and enjoy it. So with that said, links are always down below. If you're not following us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, all 3 can be found at Lone Star Mopars. And with that said, I will catch you back here next Saturday for yet another installment from the shop.